ॐ त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ॐ प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। So pranams everyone. We are doing the 16th chapter. 16th chapter is about Daiv-Asura-Sampad, the values that one must have in order to gain this knowledge. Daivi-Sampad, as I said in the last class also, it's equally important to have this even from a materialistic standpoint. All these values will help us be successful in the material world also. So we are in the second shloka now. Shri Bhagavan ahimsa satyam tyaga shantirapaishunam daya bhuteshvalo luptvam mardavam hrira chapalam. So in the last class we saw in detail about Shantihi. Shantihi we saw as mind control, mind discipline, and then we saw how Vairagya and Abhyasa helps the mind to be controlled. Vairagya helps us to bring a clean mind, pure mind, and Abhyasa helps us to get a focused mind. So this was value 14 among the values that Bhagavan had given within Daivi-Sampad. And as I said, this is probably the last value where we will be doing some kind of detailed vichara. All other values from now on would be more or less would have been already covered in chapter 13, or would have been just extensions of the values that we had already seen, either in chapter 13 or in chapter 16. So the next value is Apaishunam. Tyaga Shanti Apaishunam. Apaishunam means not publicizing or not broadcasting others' faults. Basically, not sharing others' weaknesses or others' shortcomings, whatever it can be. Not publicizing, not gossiping, not broadcasting, not sharing. So it is basically we say parasmai parokshe paradosha aprokshanam. So parasmai parokshe paradosha aprakshanam. Aprakshanam means basically parasmai to others, parokshe without the other person's knowledge. So whom we are talking about without their knowledge. Paradosha, the others' faults or weaknesses. Aprakashanam means aprakashanam, not bringing it to light. So not publicizing. So parasmai, parokshe, paradosha, aprakashanam. Not publicizing to others shortcomings or faults of others. In other words, we can say not slandering others. Or it could be even not just faults, it could be even secrets. So paramarma aprakashanam. Aprakashanam means not bringing to light. Paramarma. Marma means secret. So any kind of hidden secret that somebody had shared with us, not bringing it to light. So what we know is, if you look at anybody, everybody will have some hidden weakness or some secrets in their lives. There will be a weakness, there will be a secret, something or other. But generally what we tend to do, our job, or most of the times our curiosity would be to find out who has what weaknesses. It's a difficult job, but yet we love to do it, and we would spend the time and effort to actually understand what the other person's weaknesses are. And we do it for what purpose? So that we can share it with other people, with other people as much as possible. And why do we do that? We actually gain some kind of happiness out of it. We feel that we have achieved something. We feel that we know something what others do not know. Bhagavan says this is not to be done. Generally, if you see journalists, their profession itself is such that they always try to identify weaknesses in some their private life of top sports persons, politicians. They find some weaknesses there, they find some secrets there, or even movie stars, and then they publish them. Why do they do that? And why they pick up only these people? Because these are famous people. So what they want to do is to balance their fame with some infamy. And what else they do they get to improve their TRP ratings or viewership or whatever it is. And what is the hidden reason actually is the viewership. Because general public, people like us, we are very curious, we are very happy to know about others' weaknesses. Because to cover our own weaknesses, we would like to know what other people's weaknesses are. Generally what we do is we tend to underplay our weaknesses and overplay others' weaknesses. So in science there is a lens, concave and convex lens. Concave lens, so we use concave lens on our things, which means make it smaller, and we use convex lens on others' weaknesses, make it bigger. For example, we will say, I am just a social drinker. When we have to say about ourselves, when we drink. Whereas if we have to talk about another person, we would say that, oh, you don't know him. He is constantly smoking. He's a chain smoker. Although ourselves, we would have seen that person only smoke once or twice. But we are more than happy to label that person as quickly as possible, as bad as possible. So this is the problem with us. We underplay ours, we try to overplay others. And this understanding our weakness and understating our weakness and magnifying others' weaknesses, this projection is basically done to bring down somebody. It is either to bring down somebody or for the purpose of gossip. And Bhagavan says, do not do it. And he says, whoever does this, they are all asuras. And this tendency is with everyone. And if we ask the question, why do many people come and talk about others to us? If you see, it is not because people like to talk to me about them. It is because they know that I like this information. Because I am interested in hearing about others, many people might come and talk to them. Because this is a standard excuse many people will give. I don't go around gossiping about others, but people come to me and tell me information about others. This is a standard excuse, and the reason why they do it, because we love to hear about others, and they know that we love to hear about these things, and therefore they come and talk to us about them. So what we should do when people come and talk about others to me, I say I should not be willing to listen. I should say I should try to avoid the topic. We should try to change the topic, or clearly say, it is their life. I am not interested in that. But what we do, we are not like that. We are interested. In fact, we are not only interested in what we seek more information also. In Tamil, there is a term for that. And they say pottu vaangaradu. They say in Tamil. So they basically lead the conversation to the information that they want to get from that person. So, and the other person will also happily oblige, because after all, this information is not about them, it is about somebody else. So they are happy to actually share this information. And in fact, some people may be even happy when once you ask a question, leading question, they will say, I don't know much about this information. Maybe I will go validate, verify, or identify more information about them and bring back to you. So basically, these are all wrong. Just as speaking about others is wrong, listening about others is equally wrong. So not listening to gossip, it is also actually a kind of a vrata, penance, we can say. Just as we have kind of a mauna vrata, where we have a vrata to keep quiet. In the same way, not listening or avoiding such conversations is also a vrata. Why we should follow this? First, we do not have the right to interfere in others' personal lives. We should not be seeking any information on others' private life. Even if we come to know about their personal life, we should not be sharing that with others. This is the key thing. Just a point to note, right? Any person, if you take, any person will have both strength, they have their weaknesses. So if the question is, should we then not share the information about others' strength also? So if I'm not supposed to share the other person's weaknesses, then should I not share the other person's strength also? The answer for that case is no, you should be sharing the other person's strength. You should not stop yourself from sharing other person's strength. But weaknesses, yes, you should stop. Then question might arise, is it that I should not come to know of the other person's weaknesses at all? No, that is not what we say. We can or we should know about other person's strength or weaknesses, that is fine. Because we want to use our intellect and we don't want to be a victim of the other person's weakness. That is for sure. But at the same time, once I come to know of these weaknesses, I should not be seeking it. But once I'm making a judgment, once I'm making an observation, once I know or I come to know about this person, the person himself has shared those things with me, I should not share that with others. Because generally, what is the tendency, especially in a group, in a gathering, when people, the gossip starts. And many a times these things are shared for either, number one, it's for entertainment. No topic is there, so we will talk about this. Then second thing, or you want to make fun of that person. They mock that person, so they make fun of the person, so they bring their weaknesses. Or they try to insult that person. If they are really bad, they try to insult that person through this information. Or if they have, the last thing is even worse, when they have some kind of jealousy or when they have some kind of thing against them, they want to drag that person's reputation. So these are the reasons why people generally talk about others. And Bhagavan is saying here, not to share, not to hear others' weaknesses for the purposes meant above. whatever I have said just now, for entertainment, for fun, for mocking them, for insulting them, for dragging down their reputation and all those things. Bhagavan does not say do not know others' weaknesses. He does not say when others' weaknesses do not try to judge on it, or nothing of that sort. It is okay to be alert, to be alert, not becoming a scapegoat of these things. So it is okay to know. And generally speaking, whenever we move with people through our experience, within a matter of a few days or a few hours even, we will be able to know a person's strength or weaknesses. When we move close, we come to know. We observe, we use our inference, we arrive at it. We cannot stop that from happening. We cannot stop our mind from making all those judgments, calls and others. In fact, we don't need to make an effort also, it will come automatically. But once we come to know, it is not to be shared. That is what Bhagavan says. And how do I know that I am actually not doing it? What is a test for me? How do I know that I am not sharing other people's weaknesses? So the test is, if I am actually speaking to someone, if my topic of conversation is about another person, then I should imagine the other person being right next to me, and with that in mind, I should speak. So whatever I am capable of speaking about the other person with the person right next to me, then I can speak whatever I want to speak. But of course, you should not stretch it too far to say, okay, I don't mind insulting him, or I don't mind bringing him down even with him next to me. That's not the idea. The idea is, normally we try to make a good impression of ourselves with all other people. So we wouldn't want the other person to know even about that we are gossiping about this person. So generally, to avoid gossiping, we should actually think about this. Imagine that if the other person is right next to me, would I be speaking the same about that person? What we generally do, we will make our speech, our talk much sweeter, much cleaner, and we will be much more polite. So that is how we should be speaking even when they are not around. Otherwise, what happens? We will also have a dual personality. We will also build a dual personality. We will speak something in front of them, something at the back of them. This dual personality will also bring us down spiritually. So this is how we can do a test for ourselves. A question comes, why should I not speak about others' weaknesses? So how does this work in the way of Shastras? First and foremost, talking about others' weaknesses is also considered a kind of himsa. Himsa meaning it is a kind of a papa. Our Shastras say it is a papa to discuss about others' weaknesses. So which means, at that time when we are talking ill of others, when we are talking bad about others, when we are discussing weaknesses about others, there could be a joy at that moment, because we are having some fun at the other person's expense, or we are having some entertainment, or we are able to establish a rapport with this new person by talking about the other person. Whatever, initially it might look as if it's all going good. It probably feel that you are having sukham. But what happens? Definitely there will be some dukkham, some pain, some sorrow, which will hit us because of this papa. And we will not even know. And that could be somebody else talking about us to somebody else, that gives us dukkham. It could be anything. But that dukkham is certain to come. So if somebody feels, forget it, I'm having too much of joy in my life, I want to experience some dukkham, then please go ahead and discuss about others, because this is bound to get dukkha. The second reason is slightly more subtle. When we actually constantly think of someone else's weaknesses, a particular weakness especially, and we keep sharing that weakness with others, then actually speaking, if we reflect properly, then it would be clear that the weakness is actually with us. For example, say in an office environment, probably in India, or somebody is constantly talking about another person being dishonest, and saying he's basically accepting probably some bribes or whatever, or doing some favors for people for some benefits. Whenever we do this, what it actually means when we constantly talk about this, if we reflect properly, then we can realize, then it means that this person who's talking about the other person is not getting enough opportunities to take bribes, and there is some bit of jealousy there. That is the reason why he's actually talking about these things. So whenever we talk about something constantly, we have to reflect. Then at that point of time, probably I have to validate whether my interest also lies there, whether my taste also lies there, whether I also have the weaknesses for that, and whether I am actually talking out of jealousy about this, and I talk about it because I don't get the opportunity. So this is how we have to reflect. So again, as I said, this is another thing that we'll have to reason why we should not talk about others' weaknesses. Of course, what we can do, we can definitely, if these weaknesses we come to know, we can think about it, we can reflect upon it, so that we become aware of these weaknesses. Aware of these weaknesses in the sense, aware such that I should be aware of this, so that these weaknesses do not become part of my personality. So I can do this reflection, I can do this being aware of these weaknesses. But once if I do go for gossip, or for entertainment, or for bringing the other person down, for insulting that person, or whatever it is, then sooner or later the same weaknesses will also come to us. Because we constantly talk about it, our mind will slowly change and see how it is like to be in that place. So the mind will, in Tamil we say sarvadahvade manam, the mind will try to get close to that weakness. It will start getting an attachment to that weaknesses. So the more we advertise, the more we publicize others' weaknesses, others' problems, others' issues, it will soon become ours as well. So if we don't want to have those weaknesses, if we want to be free from those things, then we should stay away from talking, gossiping about that. When we talk about others' weaknesses, it only means we have a weakness on that weakness. Otherwise, we will not take it seriously and discuss them. So, why we should not do? It is a papam. Whenever we talk about others' weaknesses, there is a possibility that we have jealousy on that, and we ourselves are weak, have that same weaknesses. Or the third reason is, the more we talk, the more we will get attached, so we should not talk. The fourth reason is enmity. It will create enmity. So when we speak about a person's, about a friend's or a relative's weaknesses with somebody else, then what happens? We lose the trust. We lose the trust or love or friendship or whatever it is, because sooner or later they will come to know. Because nobody likes to keep the gossip among them within themselves. They love to spread it. So sooner or later it will find a way to them, and the moment they come to know that we have been discussing about them, they may not say that, but you will definitely feel that there is a loss of trust, there is a loss of love, there is a loss of friendship. And remember, as human beings, as individuals, we are constantly longing for love. We are constantly longing for, of course, attention, but attention more due to the people should like me, people should admire me, people should love me. This is the constant, as human beings, as jivas, we are always longing for. Of course, that itself is a weakness. We have discussed that when we discussed Vairagya. But this is where we are right now. And if we don't want others to have some kind of negative relationship with us, we should avoid talking about others. Our mind is such that, I'm longing for love, and I am also want an object of love. So I should get love, and I should also have some object on which I can love. Object, person, people, relation, whatever. So what happens? This gossip, this talking about others' weaknesses, neither will we be able to receive the love or friendship or the trust, nor will we be able to give out as well. So another thing, how to avoid how to avoid gossiping, how to ensure that I don't discuss others people's weaknesses or bad habits or whatever. I have had to start making a list of people with whom I should not talk, because when I actually talk to these people, invariably the gossip comes as a subject. So I should actually make a list of people with whom I should not be talking, and make sure that I don't discuss or talk to them too much. Otherwise it will be very difficult. The moment we get into that groove, or when the subject starts, it will be very difficult for us to stop. One more thing is, we should not we should avoid using somebody else to gather information. In India, or even in some places here in Singapore, it's common to use the helper maid to actually find information more about the neighbor there, or the other house that they are going. Try to gather some information about what they do, to sort of get some, supposedly within quotes, insights about other people. It's not insights, it's basically gossip. We want to know about what the other person are doing, or find out their weakness, thereby we can be happy. So this also should be avoided. We should not discuss about others' weakness. And as I said, this is a kind of a tapas, a vrata. It is a kind of a tapas. It is a kind of a vak tapas. And as I said, this is actually an extension of another value only. The value that we are talking about is basically here damaha. Damaha is sense control. So here we are going to control the sense of the mouth, the organ of speech. So this is actually a subset of damaha. It is also a subset of satyam, we can say, because satyam is satyam, what are the qualifications we gave? It has to be hitam, it has to be good, and it has to be polite. So when we talk about others, it is definitely not polite, and it is definitely not for good. So this is also comes under as an extension of satyam. As I said, so all these virtues that we are going to talk about, Apaishunam in this case, is is already a part of the main virtue that we have already seen, but Bhagavan wants to highlight these important virtues by stressing on it again. We should not speak on others' weaknesses. If we do, there is a high chance that the weakness becomes part of us. So that is Apaishunam. Apaishunam, after that, the next virtue is Daya. Daya Bhuteshu. Daya means Karuna. Karuna is compassion. You can say kindness. Bhuteshu means beings, all living beings. So it says all living beings, compassion towards all living beings. And when you say all living beings, it includes humans also. Because some people are very, kind to their pet animals, but very impolite to the fellow beings within their house. Humans basically. So it says Daya Bhuteshu, kindness towards all living beings, including humans. And here what it means is being compassionate or showing this kindness to all living beings, especially when they are in trouble, or when they are in pain, or when they are in sorrow. So that is important. So this should be the natural response. When we see somebody in pain, when we see somebody in sorrow, the natural response from our side should be Daya, Karuna. That should be the natural response from our mind. Suppose someone is actually in trouble, financially, or health-wise they are in trouble, or they are having some issues in relationships. When we see them in sorrow, the natural response from our mind should be that of compassion, kindness. But what happens generally? When we say he deserves that, I say she deserves that. I say that person, is so arrogant. Now he is paying for this. Or we'll say, I actually advised this guy not to do this, but in spite of it, he went again and did it. He didn't take my advice. Now he's asking for trouble. Let him suffer. Those kind of feelings come from our mind. Or we say, he is reaping what he sowed earlier. He had done so much of papa. Now he is reaping what he is sowing, what is already sown. So these are the most common emotions that emanate from us. So Bhagavan here is saying, don't do that. Don't say like that. Don't even think like that. It is not about, some people will have this feeling in their mind. Within their mind, they will be happy to see the other person suffer. But there will be a lip service. Bhagavan is not talking about the words that we are saying. Bhagavan is talking about compassion as a value that should come from the mind. So he says even the thought has to be changed. Even if the other person is a, what we can say, quote, villain of my life, even then our mind should have a response of Daya. So for a highly spiritually matured person, as in need not be a jnani, but if the person is highly matured spiritually, then if you see, even if the person has come to kill this person, the natural response that will come from their mind will be of Daya. Daya is for lack of a better word, I would say, a kind of a scale. The amount of Daya that we show is a kind of scale that we can use to measure our spiritual progress. So this is important, Daya. Another thing, when somebody is actually in trouble, or having an issue, at that time we cannot go and talk about philosophy. So people would say, they are not showing daya, but they might think that they are actually being very straight in their dealing. So suppose you go for a death, and then people will be sad and crying, and at that point of time we should not go and say, Atma Nityaha, Atma is eternal, there is no birth, there is no death, don't worry. All those kind of things cannot be said at that point of time. Philosophy is for normal mind. Philosophy will not enter a mind which is already affected. Just like, we have this yogasana. When we can do yogasana? Only when body is normally healthy. But if the person himself has got some problems, some fracture, at that point of time we cannot ask the person to do yogasana. So just like same thing goes with philosophy as well. Philosophy is only when the mind is in a position to accept things. Vedanta is for a normal mind. It is to improve and strengthen the mind. If the mind is already abnormal, then Vedanta will not go in. If a person is already depressed, or if the person is in deep sorrow, or if the person is extremely highly excited, so it's possible that people are also on the other end of the spectrum, where they are very highly excited. At that point of time, where they have some kind of passion on something else, material for material reasons or whatever. At that point of time, Vedanta will not work. Vedanta is not for those people. Vedanta does not work when the mind is either in roga or in bhoga. Roga meaning when the mind is sick, or when the mind is in bhoga, enjoyment. When they are happily enjoying their materialistic success, at that point of time Vedanta will not work. When we teach Vedanta, it will not work. So this, coming back, we have to, at the time of death or at these kind of things, we cannot give philosophy. The kind words would have to come from us. Only kind words will give comfort to others. So at that point of time, we cannot talk about karma, papa, all those things. Suppose even if the person who is in sorrow talks about karma or papa, we should not join in. We should just listen to them. Because if we actually drag it deeper, it may cross their boundaries, or it may put them in guilt. So we have to just listen and then go with them. We should not actually add anything to it. But it is no doubt, it is true, when somebody is in sorrow, it is true. Shastras say this: sorrow is the result of a papa. There is no doubt about it. But we should not mention it at the time of sorrow. So when somebody is actually, when sorrow is, so we should say, when somebody is in sorrow, we should say, I see sorrow has befallen you. I'm able to understand that. I can, kind of empathize with you. I also feel sad about hearing this. Let Ishvara give you the strength to bear this. That kind of comforting words should be given. We should be compassionate. When sorrow has befallen, we should not use the opportunity to get even. Look, you deserved it. I'm happy that you deserved it. That kind of, vulgar display of words should not be there. Or we should not show indifference as well. Saying, you deserved it, I don't want to come near you, you suffer, kind of feeling. Or that should not be the time where we should show our hatred. Hatred in any case we should not show. But we should not use this opportunity to display or, show our hatred. So this is daya. Now question is, how can we get this feeling of daya? This feeling of compassion, it can come only if we are able to remove, as in, if we are able to remove at least a little bit our identification with this body. So if a particular person is so attached to their own body, generally the tendency is, you would see, the compassion levels are poor, low. Only when you are able to actually remove some bit of identification from the body, the mind becomes a little sensitive. And Vedanta will work. If we have to get a Vedanta to work for us, our mind should be sensitive. Only for a sensitive mind a Vedanta will work. If a sorrow is felt by another person, if I see a person who has got sorrow, it has to go into my mind and it has to get processed, and the resultant output should be daya, compassion. For this to happen, my mind should be soft, my mind should be sensitive. We'd already seen one, I think in chapter, not in this class, maybe in the earlier class, we had seen in Bhagavad Gita, we would see again, one of the qualities of a jnani is to have two kinds of heart. One is a, hard rock-like heart, and as well as at the same time a flower-like heart. The thing is, what we should be displaying is, when we are talking about, when we are listening to others' problems, our mind should be like a flower, calm, sensitive. It should be really be able to absorb it, sense it, be very sensitive about it. But when we are talking about ourselves, our mind should be hard. We should not feel the, sorrow should not affect us. We should be making sure that we do not fall for all these things. But generally what happens, the reverse happens. When we are talking to others, we are hard-hearted. But the moment something comes to us, some problems with us, our mind is very weak, sensitive. Here, Bhagavan is saying, or basically our Shastras are saying, when somebody is having a problem, they are having an issue, and our mind takes it for processing, the outcome should be of compassion. And for that to happen, our mind should be soft, sensitive. If the mind is soft, sensitive, we will be able to identify the sorrow and relate to the sorrow. But nowadays it's not like that, right? If a person laughs, if we see another person laughing, there is a underlying jealousy. How could this person laugh? How could this person be happy? Or if the person is actually in trouble, there's a feeling, I'm happy to know that this person is also suffering, or I'm happy to know that this person is in sorrow. If a rich person is in sorrow, the poor person is happy. Why? Jealousy. This has to change. Whoever be it, whatever, if the person is in pain or in sorrow, we should put ourselves in their shoes and we should be able to empathize. Our identification, as I said, has to reduce. The body identification has to reduce, because our identification should extend beyond our body. There was a Tamil poet, Vallalar, he said, when he saw withered crops, his mind withered. He could basically identify himself even with the crops. So that is possible because he was able to extend his identification beyond this body. And ultimately, for this moksha, when we talk about the ultimate goal moksha is about identifying ourselves with everything. பார்க்கும் இடங்களெல்லாம் நந்தலாலா, தென் நான் இன்றி வேறில்லை. பாரதியார் will say, நோக்கும் இடமெல்லாம் நான் இன்றி வேறில்லை. I am everywhere. That is the ultimate goal. So this is like a rehearsal for it. Without compassion in our mind, without daya in our mind, we will not be able to get that feeling that I am everywhere. But remember, it is not about having attachment. If we have too much of attachment also, we will exactly feel the sorrow of the other person. Wherever there is too much of attachment, say a mother with the children, the child goes to the playground, gets hurt, comes back hurt. The mind of the mother is actually now will be in greater pain than the child's mind, because the mother's mind is able to identify beyond her body. She is able to now identify with the child's body as well. So wherever there is attachment, our sorrow will also double, triple sometimes. This is not about that. It is about understanding, not about feeling sorrow. We should not feel sorrow. We should be able to get, the mind should process and get out only as daya, compassion. We should not get that sorrow into our mind as well. We have to be careful about that. Even the daya that comes out of mind should not come out as a result of sorrow. Our mind should be sensitive to understand their sorrow, but not too much of, there should not be too much of attachment that we get the sorrow as well. And the moment we are able to actually reflect that sorrow, get back to them, sooner or later we will not be able to give any kind of comforting words to anybody soon. So we should be mindful of that daya should be beneficial for them, and that daya should also protect us. That daya should protect us from that sorrow. If daya goes beyond a certain point, it is called as karpanya dosha. Karpanya dosha, we will see in chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna gets this karpanya dosho bhagavat svabhavah. He will say, in the first and second chapters of Gita, Arjuna will feel that karpanya dosha. Daya's another name is kripa. So karpanya dosha comes from the word kripa only, kripa. So when daya gets sorrowful, it becomes a dosha. So karpanya dosha means that compassion, when it comes out as sorrow, it is karpanya dosha. So when we see someone suffering, we should only get love. We should get compassion. We should not feel the pain. We should not have that sorrow. Similarly, when we see somebody who is physically challenged, it should automatically come out as compassion and not as pity. There is a difference between compassion and pity. Pity means I acknowledge your suffering. I feel sorry for your suffering. Then the next level is probably sympathy. I care about your suffering. I feel sorrow. When I say sympathy, I have got a concern. Then the empathy is the next level probably, where I feel your suffering. I am able to feel the same emotions as what you feel. That is empathize. But here we are talking about compassion. Compassion means, here my objective is I want to relieve your suffering. I'm able to give the care. I'm able to give the warmth. That is how we should be looking at daya. So daya is an important value. What is the phalam? What is the benefit of daya? The first one is forgiveness. We will get this feeling, not many of us will have this. Because generally when we see somebody in trouble and who has actually caused trouble for us earlier, we have this feeling that I want to take revenge. And nowadays, In India, when you see television serials, the feeling of revenge is actually it's there in almost every scene of all those serials, especially those Tamil serials, all those things. And it gives them a kind of an importance, self-importance. And people think, generally that some people think that the one who takes revenge, one who gives back in return, those persons are intelligent. This person, he comes back and gives back, so he is intelligent. But if I'm not able to take revenge, or I don't want to take revenge, I am seen as a fool, I am seen as a weak person. This is the general tendency that people have. It is as if you are actually upgrading, or you are moving this feeling of revenge from a vice to a virtue, as if you should have this feeling of revenge because you are able to give it back. That is wrong. What we should see is, if we notice, if we need a little more strength than the other person to take revenge. If I have to take revenge, I have to be a little more stronger than the other person. But for me to forgive, I will need much, much more strength. The difference in strength is much more. I may have to have a lot more strength to be able to forgive things. So if I am looking for who is stronger, a person who is able to take revenge or a person who is able to forgive, obviously the person who is able to forgive has got greater strength. And to get this feeling of forgiveness, we need to have this value of daya. Daya has to come from our mind. And by forgiving, our mind will be free of dvesha, hatred. And not only that, even if we have some sorrow in our mind, it will also be relieved. That will also get away from our mind because of this compassion that we are able to show. The second benefit, the first one is basically forgiveness. The second benefit is ahimsa. As I said, ahimsa paramo dharma, we have seen. Ahimsa is mahavratam. According to Vedanta Shastra, ahimsa is the first and foremost value. And to follow ahimsa, daya, compassion is the seed. Generally what happens, whoever troubles us, when they are troubling us, they are in a position of strength. So that's why they are able to trouble us. They are able to give. It could be some in-laws, whatever, or could be boss office, or boss employee, whatever it is. A person they are having a little more strength and they are in command of the situation, and therefore they are able to trouble us. Sooner or later there will be a time when we will be in strength. As in-laws grow older, we grow stronger, whatever it is. Or when in the office environment itself, things could change. And when things change, there could be situations when they are in trouble or they are in sorrow. And at that time would be the best time for us to actually, we would think it is the best time to hit back. It's the best opportunity to get even. Shastra says, do not. One should not. Because the problem is, even if I hit them back, even if I get back at them, we will never be happy. Because two reasons. One, we still would not have forgotten whatever we had got earlier from them. Although we had given them, we would not have forgotten that. And the second thing is, because of that, we always think we have actually given back less than what they deserved. I should have actually given more trouble to them. And what happens is, the moment we hit back and do all these kind of things, we are feeding our negative ego. The negative ego, the Asuri Sampad, we are actually building on it. So at that point of time, if they are in trouble, they are in sorrow, although they have done something bad for us, if we are able to evoke the feeling of daya, if we are able to evoke the feeling of compassion, we will be able to forgive them and follow ahimsa. And by following ahimsa, doing ahimsa, paramo dharma, I am closer to the end goal, the purpose of my life. It will help me to remove dvesha. So this is the second benefit. Then there is a third benefit, which is called sannyasa moolam. Sannyasa moolam, the daya, compassion is the seed for sannyasa. If we are able to accommodate for someone, then it is only possible with compassion. Some people have this wrong opinion about people studying Vedanta. They say Varat Vedanta, they say in Tamil. They say Vedanta will not have, by studying Vedanta, you will be devoid of all emotions. That is not true. Vedanta, we talk about having a feeling of compassion. You see, we should have vairagya, which is dispassion, where I do not have any attachment towards others. But Vedanta talks about love. Vedanta does not say that you should not love all the beings around you. Love is different from attachment. Vedanta will work, as I said, only when the mind is softer, only when the mind becomes sensitive. And as I said, the jnani's mind should be like a flower at times and like a stone at other times. Like a flower when they respond to the world, and like a stone when the world responds to them. So they should not get hurt when somebody creates trouble for them. But at the same time, when they are hearing about troubles from others, they should have this feeling of compassion. So when we speak to others, we should be soft like a flower. But when others talk to us and when others are hurtful, our mind should be like a rock. But what happens? It is just the opposite for us. When we speak to someone, it is harsh. When we listen to others, our mind is so, insecure, that we would want to take offense for everything that they say. We try to find fault with whatever they are saying or doing. So this daya is about softening the mind. This daya is the ultimate jnani's first lakshana. Jnani's lakshana is daya. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitra karuna evacha, Bhagavan will say. So whether we are jnani or ajnani does not matter. The thing is, when we see someone in sorrow, it should evoke daya, compassion in our mind. There is one last thing before we close. When we talk about compassion, we should not confuse that with punishment. There are certain roles in our duties where we may have to give punishment. Like for example, a judge. A judge cannot say when he finds that when an accused has indeed been the killer, at that point of time he should not say, I have compassion for this person, so I do not want to punish this person. Punishment is different from compassion. When we are raising kids, when we are raising children, when we have to, give some kind of punishment to the children because they have to actually follow, make sure that they are actually not falling in bad ways at a later date. At that point of time, we should not mix compassion, daya, and punishment. If we don't punish the child at that point of time, they will be in greater sorrow at a later date. Only thing we have to understand is when giving punishment, we should not mix it with vengeance, anger, and all those kind of things. we have to be clear that we are doing this for the child's welfare, so that it is not about nobody should be ever in sorrow. We are not saying that I'm going to ensure that nobody gets into sorrow. That is not daya. We cannot stop the sorrow for a lot of other people. We cannot. So daya it should not be confused with these kind of things. In fact, sorrow is or it can come as a great lesson. Sometimes when the child is being punished, they get into a sorrow. Doesn't matter, that can come as a great lesson for them. It's kind of like punishing them with love. We have to make sure. But daya, so this is a point that we have to note, but daya as a compassion, as a feeling, it should be there whenever somebody is in sorrow. And it removes a lot of bad qualities from our personality. It removes dvesham, hatred, vengeance, this kind of feeling of himsa, revenge taking feeling, all these things. So we have to inculcate daya. How do we get daya? Through values meditation. We have seen values meditation in Introduction to Vedanta. Through that we can try to bring forth again and again, basically auto suggestion, and telling that I have compassion for everybody. This person is in sorrow, I feel compassionate towards him. That's the kind of values meditation that we have to do. So with that we will close daya. Next class is how do we teach children to be compassionate. First and foremost, as elders, we'll have to ensure that we are good role models. Second thing, even if they are actually having this feeling of revenge or anything, or when they get into a fight with somebody else, we should not seed them with hatred. Say you should have given him back, why should you do it, he's always like that, you should hit him back, that kind of feeling where they also are fed with thoughts of hatred, vengeance, and all those kind of things. So we should also look at that. There are lots of stories. If they are small kids, there are lots of stories that our Puranas are having, where these expressions of daya comes to the fore. So we will have to ensure that we are able to give these stories. Many of these stories are basically the biggest, I would say, influences for them. What they see in television when they are children are the ones that they would probably be following when they are in the teens and later on. So earlier in those days, we used to have these, Panchatantra stories, Puranas, and all those things like Harishchandra story and all those kind of stories, which will inculcate these values for people. But now we end up actually making them watch all this Marvel and all those kind of things. So that is where we lose them. So feeding them with good thoughts, good values, good stories is the way we can actually build all these values, not just daya. More importantly, we should be there as a role model. If we have a feeling of vengeance towards somebody else, and if we ask them not to have this kind of vengeance with others, it will not work. Okay, trust I answered that. So if there are any other, we'll probably see it in the next class. We'll see more of these values in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swasti Prajabhya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahimahishah. Gobrahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.
Om. Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.